close your eyes. Close your eyes, everyone. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. If you found this process fruitful for you, I'd like to just see, by show of hands, how many of you found this process fruitful for you? Okay. Thank you very much. Hands down, eyes open. The very simple poll is, this was a fairly fruitful process for you. So that's a good thing. And for those of you for whom this may not have felt fruitful, it takes a little practice, let's be honest about it. The invitation over the course of this plenary, I'm going to be asking Peter and Sophia to be also some pairs of ears listening, because as we hear the reports, we're going to be trying to hear for patterns, and I'll be inviting Peter or Sophia to make any comments as they feel moved during the course of this together in English and Italian. Really the goal here for us is, as we're listening, as you know, we're going to be invited to complete a survey after this period of group reports. And as Tomas will explain, the survey is intended to be really our final recommendations, and we'll have the results for our public viewing here. But the objective of this, as was in the Synod, of a kind of report out like this, is for us to understand what is the emerging consensus from the group, where are the creative tensions, and are there any questions that really need to be resolved. What it asks is, as you each report, you don't have to necessarily repeat anything that you've heard others say. So you can simplify your report as you hear others saying the same thing, okay? You could just indicate, we have consensus that is reflected in reports that were already shared, but here are things that are still important for us from our group to report and make known to the plenary, okay? Are you ready? I see your excitement. We would like to start with group one. I was starting here and then we'll go in order. So Bishop Rex, would you start us off? You have 2 minutes.
Okay, we responded with a yes to the first question. We recognize the need for and urgency for the feast and our desire to act in solidarity and to act in response to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor and the call of fellow believers in response also to Laudato Si. Note that ecumenism was important, but another thing was mentioned, interreligious aspect. That is very important also, because some other religions have the same concerns as we would have. There is much evangelization, and there is much promise for evangelization and spirituality in the feast, in order that one may come to a right relationship with God and His creation, to understand the mystery of creation and man's relationship of caring rather than dominating creation, and to have a more direct relationship with God, a wider horizon the entirety of God's creation, and with a promising ecclesial and spiritual fruitfulness. There were several questions raised. Firstly, the tension, it seems, that exists between the liturgical and the pastoral. It was evident this was a tension that could be seen by most. Another issue was how to accompany people vis-a-vis Laudato Si towards the ecological conversion. Are we just going to be content with just establishing the feast and then the conversation ends? Or is there something more beyond it? That was a question, and I think that needs also to be reflected upon. That the feast will not be an end is for us. In fact, the hope was that this will become Unlike the feasts that we have already now, that is bringing us truly to much fruitfulness in terms of our relationship with creation and with our fellow Christians.
Thank you, Bishop Rex. Thank you for group 1. Thank you very much. Group 2.
Okay, group 2. There was broad agreement on the importance of recognizing God as a creator and the ongoing act of creation. It was the celebration of this was our moment is seen as a kairos moment to address theological gaps and raise awareness about humanity's relationship with creation. The literature is seen as both formative and exploratory, with potential to deepen understanding of God's work from creation to eschaton. Perhaps the main tension that we discussed was the tension between the universal and local expressions of the universal. The tension can be seen, we think, as an opportunity for a universally promoted feast which would allow for global impact, but also for space of engagement with the local contexts and with indigenous wisdom from peoples and their relationship with the earth. It could be an expression of what was suggested in the local synod about how the universal relates to the local. There was also questions raised about how to move from grassroots level, grassroots enthusiasm, for example, in this place, in our context here, to the formal ecclesial approval and the complexity of the process. Practical concerns include selecting the appropriate date. The suggestions range from September 1st or the nearest Sunday, which would align with the World Day of Prayer for Creation, but also other culturally significant dates like the September equinox. And there is the question of the celebration of either solemnity or feast. One emphasis was that the theological and pastoral impact of choosing a solemnity might be important. Others see those distinctions as less relevant to ordinary people. So ultimately, while there's consensus on the need for action, there are still questions about process, timing, and the ways to ensure inclusivity. The group was very insistent on the urgency of what needs to be done, moving ahead with urgency, but also the need for careful discernment, suggesting collaboration between local churches, episcopal conferences, and the Holy See to move forward in the most effective way possible.
Thank you very much. Group 2. This kind of reporting out can be, in many ways, a deluge of very crystallized good thinking. So, kind of trying to pace this without being overwhelmed by it. And as we take a move to group 3, and we can just pause to take in what has been shared in the first 2 sharings now. Okay, so group 3.
As you suggest, I won't repeat anything that's already mentioned, but there was a lot mentioned that we had discussed. So if we move into something just generally, just to confirm that there was general consensus that yes, we all would want to move forward with some Feast of Creation. We felt what hasn't been mentioned is that it would give it a wonderful opportunity to create calls to action on the local pastoral level. Grassroots level, it would enable us to connect with either On that note, though, we felt it important that it wouldn't be brought forward in the context of advocacy for creation, but it would be very much in the context of a faith-based introduction to the church. We felt that any important new feast in a modern world would still uphold the church tradition and how it was written and presented. And without going into the details, because some things were named that people felt that they wouldn't necessarily want to mention, it was named that people had lived experience of resistance within the church to this, and they felt that an honest conversation has to be happened about where that resistance comes from, and to name it, to be able to challenge that and not have that as an obstacle. For tensions, we challenged each other. We named that we overcame the superficial harmony that often exists in conversations like this, and that there were real criticisms and challenges and critiques of each other. Without repeating what was mentioned, suffice to say, we just felt that it was named that this weekend was fairly Eurocentric, global north, white, male, and that there could have been space for a wider, more global discussion. But we also named that that's the church, and that's a wider conversation and a wider challenge that we can't overcome, and that shouldn't hold back any conversations or development moving forward with a feast.
Okay, thank you very much, Group 3. Okay, so again, we'll hear from Group 4, and again, especially those items which emerged in your discernment, which are fresh and haven't been said already. And we'll take another brief pause after Group 4's sharing to just let this sink in before we move on. Group 4.
Okay, so our group was a very peaceful, working group with a real ecumenical spirit. So we had 3 points that we wanted to say regarding the points that we were in agreement. We felt because it was the signs of the times, common agreements among our ecumenical group is that there should be a liturgical celebration of God the Creator as a solemnity. Secondly, we want to be close to our Eastern Church brothers and sisters regarding the date of September the 1st. However, we need to adapt to the pastoral realities and the various contexts that the Church finds itself in, and there was a preference for the first Sunday of September. Third, we felt that this was a moment of kairos. It was the 17th and 100th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea's Creed, and that this crisis of social environment and degradation was a real opportunity for the feast. Regarding questions raised, it took us a while to get together for our common agreements. However, we did talk about ecological sin and what it meant, but we didn't really come together regarding, we didn't have enough time to go into the depth of it. And that within our group we had Anglicans, Roman Catholics, and Byzantine Catholics, and it was a real wonderful ecumenical peaceful spirit, so it gave us a lot of hope. That's it.
Thank you, and it's so wonderful to hear in the discernment process when we speak to how there was a movement of spirit in the group, and so the experience of a kind of sentiment of intimacy, a sense of a hope that emerged, the sense of a kind of solidarity amongst differences. These are the sorts of things that we want to pay particular attention to in a communal discernment process. So thanks for giving voice to those. Okay, so let's just take a moment and again consider what has landed within us as we've heard each of these reports, and how these reports are somehow resonating or echoing with our own sentiments.
I understand that we are not going to repeat that we are on consensus in that celebration, and we are not repeat that the point to create this tension was it would be a memory feast or solemnity. Okay, I will not repeat that. The question we raise is on the advocacy for a season of creation. Do we maintain the informal season of creation that is being currently practiced for the month of September, or do we create a new liturgical season of creation?
Okay, thank you. And this is a very specific question that you're raising. So, could you repeat it one more time, the last part of your question?
The question we raise is on the advocacy for a season of creation. Do we maintain the informal season of creation that is being currently practiced for the month of September, or do we create a new liturgical season of creation?
Okay, muchísimas gracias. Okay, so if we can move to group 6.
Gruppo 6 italofono. Rispetto a ciò che è già stato detto e che è condiviso anche dal gruppo, innanzitutto la polarità rispetto alla data. Diciamo, c'è stata una maggioranza che si è espressa a favore del 1 settembre o della domenica successiva, ma anche la possibilità di porla all'inizio dell'anno liturgico. In relazione a questa polarità sorge una domanda. La questione è esattamente quella di riuscire a intercettare quale potrebbe essere la data migliore proprio per non alterare l'equilibrio, l'armonia, diciamo così, dell'anno liturgico. Quindi ci siamo lasciati con questa domanda su questa questione. E poi un'altra questione che è emersa è anche quella relativa alla proposta delle varie chiese locali dell'istituzione di questa festa, nel senso che ci siamo resi conto che in alcuni contesti diciamo così, sociali, politici, culturali potrebbe essere letta in maniera strumentale. Okay? Quindi il rischio che venga ridotta una solennità che vada a celebrare l'ecologismo piuttosto che il mistero della creazione, oppure per esempio in un contesto statunitense che si possa quasi leggere un avvallo verso la teoria del creazionismo contro l'evoluzionismo, cosa che questo in realtà non dovrebbe essere, quindi questa accortezza rispetto a questa situazione.
Grazie mille. Okay, so as we've paused to take in again these questions that have been raised around the date and around the accord with local celebrations, and also this question of advocacy for the season of creation, we just pause for a moment to consider how those also resonate with us. In a moment, we'll be turning our attention to the reports from the 5 online groups. So are we set up to do that? Thomas, okay, very good. Hello, online participants. It's wonderful to see you. Okay. And so we have 22 people online, if my vision's not mistaken. 28, okay. My vision is mistaken. 23. And we have hopefully 5 members who are reporters. So, okay. Let's do a sound check here.
other note takers?
Yes, thank you, Anne-Marie.
I'm not sure how we were to order ourselves because we went by names, not numbers. Our group had a consensus on all things with a slight tension around the Sunday as verse against it being on September 1 to be in line with the ecumenical and the Eastern churches. The question one, and much of what we were in convergence with has already been discussed. We all felt that it should be a solemnity and on a Sunday, except for that piece. The question we had was around space and time, and I'm sorry, it's 4:30 a.m. in the morning here in Australia, and my voice is a little bit tight. A question around formation and how to promote this proposal more widely, as some of our members explain that there is much of the world, Catholic world, that doesn't even know this proposal is happening. So formation once and if it gets up, being very important, and it being an opportunity for that, and then how to promote.
Okay, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thanks for checking in from down under.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. We're ready for you.
Yes, our group was, it was not very Eurocentric. I was the only European there, but I've actually been in the Philippines 50 years, so the main concerns, the consensus was very much positive. The reason being, people said that we know what creation is and we're taking it for granted and we're going to wake up some morning and we won't be taking it for granted anymore. So we need to do it now, rather than while we still have a sense of creation. And people did also mention that the feast is necessary to restore more cosmic and wider understanding of our religion and our God. And also the need to do it to celebrate that we, at the heart of what we're about is to celebrate Trinity and our deep relationship with the Creator, and this opening to the beauty of nature as well. On all the other, whether it be a universal or an optional solemnity or feast, the general consensus was that we want whatever is maximum. We weren't actually sure which was higher, a solemnity or a feast, but whichever is the most is the most important, is the highest status. We would go for that. As to the date, but also whether it be done by universally or by the bishops, the feeling was do it to the maximum, but be practical also. It's important not to impose it on the universal church if it's not ready, if some places are not ready for it. That's a waste of energy. As to the date, some were for Sundays and some were for September 1.
Okay. Thank you very much for your input, Group 8. And as we're mindful of time, I'd like to move on to Group 9 and encourage Group 9 and 10 and 11 to be mindful not to necessarily repeat things that you've heard others say, but say what is particular and fresh from your group. Thanks very much. So group number 9. or the next group? Whoever feels moved to take the next report. Do we have another note taker amongst the groups?
Okay, I'll go next group. Hear me?
There we go.
We were kind of comparing our local implementation possibilities with an expectation of what this global feast can give us. So, this global level would widen the awareness of the problem between the general church members. And this special day, Sunday, would offer time to think of. But on the other hand, there's a problem of formation effort around the priests, for example, right? Which usually don't know a lot of the crisis, so on. And then another characteristic of this global-local comparison is awareness of the global south, of the poor, of other contexts of the global crisis problem, the climate change crisis problem. That was basically the new thing that we could think of our group.
Thank you very much. So the attention to the formation of priests, this question of the tension again between global and local, and in many ways it sounds like a question of respecting really these concerns in a more conscientious way. So thank you for that. And can we have the reporter from the next group?
Yes, good evening. We're our group to speak only to what hasn't been said, noting that most agreed it should be a universal solemnity with further discussion on whether a fixed date or a Sunday, but that the observance deserves the greatest possible attention. Adding the note that a possible September 21st date, as may have been raised in the last seminar, on the basis of the very ancient Orthodox traditions, has the beauty of aligning with science and the equinox and bringing science aligned with our liturgical celebrations. Some felt a dissonance in recognizing what would be the experience and process of Episcopal conferences if the solemnity were made universal, and they felt not ready, as we in the church are attempting to be synodal. Overall, our group felt uneasy to engage too slow a process, recognizing that the process will fizzle out, the celebration will play out. Our group is recognizing that this proposal is about our faith in God the Creator. It's not solely at all a response to the immediate need of the climate crisis. It should not be controversial, but it's about who we are as the people of God, honoring the creative mystery of God, La Creazione. And additionally,